Good evening and welcome to the February 6, 2023 regular meeting of the Mayor and City Council. First item on our agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to invite Nancy Wild from our wonderful community museum to lead us in the pledge. If everyone can please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Next item on our agenda is reflection, and I'd like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you all very much. Next, we have approval of minutes. Tonight, we have 3 sets of minutes before us. The first one is from the regular session on Tuesday, January 3rd. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move the approval of the minutes from Tuesday, January 3rd, 2023.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. Next, we have the minutes from the regular meeting on Tuesday, January 17th. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I move approval of the minutes from January 17th.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. And next, we have the minutes from the joint work session on Monday, January 23rd. What is the pleasure of the council?
Move approval of those minutes.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you all very much. Next, we have presentations. We are going to do proclamation for Black History Month. I'm going to invite Council Vice President Henderson to join me down at the podium, as well as Zainab Abbas, who's going to be receiving the proclamation, and Dorothy Winder from our Parks and Rec. Okay, go ahead and read back.
Good evening. Black History Month is celebrated annually in the United States during the month of February. Black History Month was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson in 1926, who wanted to bring national attention to the important contributions of blacks to the history of the United States. The city will be celebrating Black History Month February 1st through 28th with an exhibit display at the Activity Center and other activities at facilities around the city. The city of Gaithersburg is honored to recognize Mrs. Zainab Abbas, a Gaithersburg resident, as the recipient of the proclamation acknowledging African American Heritage Month. She is the founder of nonprofit SciTech2U Incorporated, whose mission is to inspire young, at-risk Black and brown youth to change the direction of their life with the challenging of learning and excelling in STEM subjects. As an instructor at a local community college, she saw students who were not applying themselves to learning, and she felt called to make a difference. In 2011, with her own money, she founded SciTech2U as a way to nurture these self-defeating young people and help to break the preschool to prison pipeline. Since then, SciTech2U has grown from a small after-school program operated from her home with 5 to 10 students to a fully fledged after-school and out-of-school program serving more than 400 youths a year, and in 2018 received its 501c3 status.
Right. And I'm going to read the proclamation from the Mayor and City Council of Gaithersburg. Whereas the history of Black Americans is unique and rich and has helped define what it means to be an American. And whereas Black Americans have come to know the freedoms our forefathers fought for when establishing these United States, gained through the application of our founding principles of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to assembly, and due process of law. And whereas Black Americans have worked to remove systemic racism and discrimination that pervaded our laws and our public consciousness for decades, steadily making progress through the work of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, Marion Wright Edelman, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Thurgood Marshall, Colin Powell, John Lewis, and many others. And whereas Black Americans have contributed greatly to the success of our nation in the areas of commerce, business, politics, education, medicine, arts, and inventions that changed the nation, now therefore I, Judd Ashman, by the power vested in me as mayor of Gaithersburg, do hereby proclaim February 2023 as Black History Month in the city of Gaithersburg and encourage all government officials, educators, businesses, and residents of the city to honor, recognize, and celebrate the contributions of Black Americans. Proclaim this 6th day of February 2023, signed by me, and let's give Zainab a great round of applause.
I want to thank the Multicultural Affair for recognizing the work that SciTech to You has been doing for the last 12 years. I am humbled, I am honored and very appreciative for this. I mean, I came into this not expecting to get any awards, but to serve and really uplift our young children. And I think something that we all see today, I saw many, many years ago, 12 years ago, that there are a lot of underrepresented students that aren't exposed to STEM, and I just want to make a small difference in the lives of everyone. So SciTech to You is for anyone who's underrepresented. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There you go.
Do you want with the family?
Oh, sure. If you want, come on up.
These are 4 of my 6 children. The older ones are away now. They've grown out of the house. One is in Oregon, Mansoura, and the other one, Nadia, is in Ohio. One's a mechanical engineer. The other one's systems engineer, and my nephew, he's at work right now, Yusuf, so.
All right, ready?
Nice.
Did you get it?
Thank you.
You didn't?
One more.
I guess we got it. Okay. Thank you, guys. Okay, next item on our agenda is public comments. This is the time the mayor and council would like to hear from anybody who'd like to speak on any topic. Usually I would say other than a public hearing topic, but tonight we don't have any public hearings. So we ask that you keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And if you have more than 3 minutes worth of material to deliver, you're welcome to use your 3 minutes and send the rest to us in writing. We'll consider it just the same. State your name and address or neighborhood for the record. Do we have anybody who'd like to speak tonight under public comments? Come on up, Carl.
Hi, I'm Carl Van Nest. I live at 52 Redding Ridge Drive in Gaithersburg. I'm proud to be a member of the city of Gaithersburg. I've been here for 30 years. I appreciate your good work, and I especially appreciate your excellent work. What tremendous work you're doing. I'd like to talk today about two minor things. First, West Side Drive is still ugly at times. It would really benefit from a few garbage cans. I've shared a couple pictures today with you The garbage seems easy to find, and the citizens deserve a few garbage cans. Malcolm King Park at the bottom of the hill is better served. Why no garbage cans here? Do they fill too quickly? It seems like they'd be well used if they were filling quickly. Maybe they need to be emptied more often if there were garbage cans that were filling quickly. Next, I'd like to talk about 2 memos that the EAC has submitted to the city about 50 days ago. The first was about Ordinance 813, and we asked that a minor change be made to that ordinance, that we add a time clause to it. The ordinance has to do with dumps that could go into the watershed. So we asked that those dumps get cleaned up within 24 hours, and especially for salt dumps or salt caches. It's especially important. We don't want things like Lake Varuna, the fish kill there, to occur again, and our neighbors shouldn't have their water supplies polluted. 24 hours would be a great thing. The second memo dealt with collecting data on salt distribution in terms of pounds per single lane mile. We need to collect data this way so that we can compare salt distribution from one area to another within the same climate. It's a simple request. It can probably be completed via clipboard where the salt or brine truck monitors their odometer while spreading salt products. I can't imagine this activity taking more than a few hours per winter event. And this year, it wouldn't have cost anything at all because Gaithersburg is really doing a very good job with salt. I haven't seen any brine, I haven't seen any salt, and that would be very appropriate because of the lack of ice and snow that we've had on our things. But other people have put down, salt. The private applicators who put down salt around, our shopping centers, and lots of salt around our schools, which is again, we have to keep things safe, but we also have to clean up after ourselves if we do put down salt. Thank you very much. When will I hear back about some of these memos? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Carl. The data on salt distribution, I feel like I responded to you recently. I'm going to go back to my email and see, because I forwarded to staff, and staff gave me a detailed answer, which I'm pretty sure I sent you, but I'll take a look. The other items, we'll talk to staff. Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to speak under public comments here today?
Brett O'Connor, my wife Zara O'Connor. This is in regard to the proposed tattoo ZTA at 1 North Summit Avenue. I understand there's a presentation tonight on that, so this is kind of a preemptive response. Just a couple of comments is that Maryland licenses barbers and hair salons differently. I think that's a little bit outlined in the presentation tonight. But Maryland exclusively prohibits tattooing and cosmetology salons. This exclusion is not present in the prohibitions in the barber section. Additionally, in the barber section, it outlines that secondary businesses are permitted in a barber as long as there's a partition wall separating the two businesses. That I didn't see in the presentation. So hopefully, maybe some of the council members can ask that question to the staff presenting tonight. As well, if the ZTA is being held up by this distinction between allowing a tattoo in a cosmetology type business, it would be our preference to pursue a tattoo single tattoo parlor, so not a joint use facility. The barber was kind of a secondary thought to distinguish our business from other tattoo parlors and other barbers in the area. We feel Old Town definitely doesn't need another barber or salon. I believe there's 11 within walking distance from us right now. One note reading over the presentation, which is something I'd like to ask, is tattoo is permitted in the industrial zones I-1 and I-3, except near a church, a school, and there are some other restrictions. which I thought was a little odd to stick in there, considering that Old Town has a lot of churches and a lot of schools, but we've permitted bars, wine, and beer sales, and now recently a THC dispensary, which wasn't in previous zoning ordinances. Tattoo has been around for a while, and that's why it's being excluded. THC is relatively new, and it's not in any zoning. So it feels like being a little discriminated against in that sense. I have a correspondence I'd like to submit with a kind of summary of what we've had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. David, come on up. Anybody else who wants to testify, feel free to line up behind David.
All right, good evening. My name is David Mullins. I live at the Gateway Apartments. I'm a tenant representative on the Landlord-Tenant Commission, but just here as my apartment dwelling self. Today I wanted to talk about the joint work session that was on January 23rd. I had the pleasure of attending. The main really short thing I just wanted to get out is I really want to commend, I believe it was Mr. Robinson who gave the presentation. Our director, I think Mr. Christile was there too. Our city manager, Ms. Briley, all three of them I thought were just extremely on point with their comments and their presentation of some like nuanced and sometimes dense material, as the council acknowledged. But I thought dense with a purpose as a listener and an apartment dweller, and I really appreciated some of the comments they made, just kind of about the experience of renters in the housing conversation, and I was really heartened by that. So thank you all for that. And then, I did want to comment on, some of the things that, especially I think it was our city manager mentioned that the council had some concerns that some things are just, are federal and state in the housing sphere. A lot of the kind of, things that might help renters' rights, for instance, might be under the purview of the federal government and things. And I really appreciated the kind of willingness to dig in and see. And I want to throw out there that I think for the public, I've found in the outreach that I do that where the housing things break down across those three levels is just a huge barrier to understanding. And I think both at the property manager level and the tenant level. And so I look forward to hopefully digging in and seeing. I remember hearing some calls for data, like we're missing kind of data and things. And I think that's a place where local can flex a little bit, for lack of a better word, in that you have a lot of there could be data collection of these businesses here that might shed some light on that could help inform the policies at other levels. But anyways, I hope we sort through that and see what is possible here and are a leader in that way. And then I just want to bring it back around to what I mentioned in my last comment, which was rental assistance, and just mention that I think it's good to be deliberate and get through these nuanced things that came up, and it's going to be good to be deliberate about certain policies like subsidized housing if we have a role to play in that, or stabilization. But there is an urgency, okay, also that I hope we could maybe separately, continue to discuss about financial resources. And I don't remember if it was Councilmember Spiegel, but one council member was right to highlight what we're already doing in this vein, and I appreciate that. But again, coming back to the data and the levels of government, sometimes it's hard to tell exactly what we are doing. Are we repurposing federal funds? Are we putting up money? And we've got, and it's just, I've got 50 people in our 750 apartment complex. 50 people alone are on the path to eviction in housing court last Wednesday again. So a rental arrears forgiveness would be huge. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you, David. Do we have anybody else who'd like to testify? Not seeing anyone here. I'm going to go to our Zoom audience. And if you are on Zoom and watching this meeting and would like to testify, use the Zoom raise hand function. And I'm not seeing any hands go up, although we do have a few Zoom viewers tonight. So we appreciate everyone's testimonies. We will get to the ZTA staff guidance discussion later. David, thank you for your comments. Appreciate that. And Carl will follow up. So next we have from the mayor and city council, and tonight we're going to start with Councilmember Neil Harris.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Just I'll keep it brief. In the last several weeks since the last formal meeting, I participated in the monthly meeting of the Transportation Committee, which I'm happy to say is really very active these days, much more so than it was a few years ago. And we discussed a number of issues, including Bike to Work Day, which is coming up in May, right before the book festival. Attended the CCACC's Lunar New Year celebration. Unfortunately, got there late and missed out on all the rest of my colleagues here, but enjoyed the show as well. And it's a great organization, and really glad that they continue to do this, even though they've had to change venues since they used to do this at Lake Forest Mall, which is not really the most welcoming venue anymore. Also participated in the monthly meeting of the Maryland Municipal League, which was a dialogue with the county executive, as well as regular business. And finally, had a number of meetings myself over the last few weeks with various people who are interested in working on improving some of the schools in our area, particularly in the northern part of the city. Was able to have some discussions with members of the school board and some of their staff, as well as community citizens, and just stirring the pot a little, trying to see what ideas we can get to help out, even though schools are not under the jurisdiction of the city, but we need to advocate for our kids. So that's what I've been up to. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. No plug for the Eagles?
Well, everybody's rooting for the Eagles tonight on Sunday, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know about everybody.
Fly, Eagles, fly. Where's Jim tonight? I'm my partner in crime on this one.
We'll go to Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. First, let me express what I'm sure is a sentiment shared by everyone else here. Our thoughts and prayers to the people of Turkey and Syria who are dealing with the horrible earthquake that just hit there. Already thousands of people have been declared killed by the earthquake, and they're dealing with a lot of suffering and aftermath of that. So we wish them the best in this very, very difficult time. Want to wish everybody happy and meaningful Black History Month, and hope you do take advantage of the many programs and exhibits that we have around the city, as well as many other great programs in the county and region. An opportunity to really reflect on the importance and meaning of this month. A number of us attended. It's sort of hard to believe that it's been so many weeks since our last formal meeting, but a number of us were honored to be able to attend the inauguration of our new governor, Wes Moore, and Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller on January 17th, which is actually after our last formal meeting. That was a really special opportunity to be part of history here in Maryland, and looking forward to working with them and their administration on a number of priorities that we share. Neil already mentioned the MML Montgomery County event with the county executive, and the Lunar New Year event. I was able to attend those as well. I think the Lunar New Year event took on added meaning as well with the mass shootings that occurred in California just before the event. It's a shame that we continue to have to come together to show support in tragedy. It would be nice to come together to show support for happier occasions. And then I just wanted to mention a couple other things that I've been involved in over the last couple of weeks. Our new comptroller, Brooke Learman, in her very first official visit as state comptroller to Montgomery County. Her first stop was here in Gaithersburg. She attended a kickoff event, a launch of our volunteer income tax assistance program here in Gaithersburg at the Equity Center, which is temporarily housed at Lake Forest Mall, and we'll need to find a new home soon because the mall, as we all know, is closing. But it was a great event, a great opportunity for us here in Gaithersburg to welcome our state comptroller and shine a light on the types of financial support services and financial empowerment services that we provide here in Gaithersburg. Free tax assistance for income eligible people to be able to get a tax refund, including a valuable earned income tax credit refund, which is essentially money that you're entitled to that a lot of people don't apply for. So we want to encourage folks to take advantage of that program and be able to get those resources. Folks are struggling, as we've heard, with housing and rental costs. Folks are struggling with many other costs these days. and programs like VITA and other financial empowerment programs that we have here in the city, including our Financial Empowerment Center, which offers free guidance for anybody on budgeting and other finance issues. We're here to help, and that's the point of these programs, so please take advantage of them. Finally, in my role as the city's designated member of the board of directors of the nonprofit Friends of the Wells Robertson House, I attended and conducted a board meeting on February 3rd of the Friends of Wells, and we're in the process of continuing our reorganization and prioritizing being able to give some of the money that we've raised over the years back to our wonderful Wells Robertson House program for folks who are formerly unhoused and recovering from addiction. So we're looking forward to being able to provide some real resources this coming year to the House. That's all I've got this evening.
Thank you, Ryan. We'll go to Lisa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to extend congratulations to Westmore and Aruna Miller for breaking all kind of barriers and glass ceilings, and as our now governor and lieutenant governor, and I look forward to working with them and serving them in the state of Maryland as we move forward for the next 4 to 8 years. Also, on the 24th of January, I attended the We the People mock congressional hearings at Northwest High School. I attended as a judge, but it was incredible. 9th and 10th graders who put on these mock hearings for us, congressional hearings, and the understanding of the Constitution from these young folks was incredible. What they portrayed to us, and then we had to judge, which was next to impossible, given the magnitude of education that they had and understanding, and even in the questions that we threw at them, they didn't know what we were going to ask. They were still well prepared to answer them. So congratulations to Samantha Fowler, who is the AP government teacher at Northwest High School, for the program that she puts on. Also on the 26th, I was happy to represent the city of Gaithersburg in the mayor's absence for the HOA Sustainable Summit with Sustainable Maryland. We have 13 HOAs that now participate, which is a growth from last year of 11 to 13, which is incredible. They are seeing real savings for the HOAs that take care of utilities. They're seeing decreases in water bills and electricity bills because of the work that they're doing with Sustainable Maryland. So I look forward to other HOAs jumping in and reaping those benefits and working with Sustainable Maryland to make their communities more sustainable. Also on the 4th, this month, which was a couple of days ago, I think, I attended watched jazz pianist Janelle Gill at the Arts Barn. Just an amazing work of art. The piano just happens to be my favorite instrument, so I may be a little biased, but she had musicians on stage with her in recognition of Black History Month. The Arts Barn put on this program. It was incredible. So if you weren't able to attend, please look up Janelle Gill and listen to the music that she provides, because it was incredible. And I saw the city manager, Tanisha, there as well. I was happy to see her there as well. And also, lastly, I want to wish everyone a happy Black History Month. I was at the Activity Center this morning, and go by, take 5 minutes, 10 minutes to go through and peruse and look at the artwork. It is absolutely beautiful. The signage and the posters are beautiful and educational. So take the time and read through and look at the pictures and pick up a few new nuggets about Black History Month. So it's worth it. So happy Black History Month.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you for representing us at the Sustainable Maryland HOA meeting. That was, really appreciate that. I since last time we met, I did spend some time out of town going to visit parents in Florida, so I've been out for some of this, but I attended some of these as well. Just one announcement, and that is to put on your calendars the Gaithersburg Book Festival coming up on May 20th. We are going to have an incredible lineup of authors and programs. a lot of which are listed on the website right now, Gaithersburgbookfestival.org. And I'm not going to get into it, but over the next couple months, you're going to hear a lot from me about who's coming and why you should be there and why you should invite all your friends and colleagues and coworkers and family from all over the place. It's going to be incredible. So Gaithersburg Book Festival, May 20th, all day at Boer Park and Gaithersburgbookfestival.org. I will note we do not have a work session next week, February 13th. The next, hybrid regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be Tuesday, February 21st, because there's a holiday on Monday, although I don't remember which holiday it is. What holiday is that? President's Day. Okay, it's President's Day. So Tuesday, February 21st is the next regular meeting. And before we go from the city manager, we need to do a motion for a closed executive session. And in the packet, we have, that's the notice, but we do have, if you go to, we do have, go down. Oh, no, it's notice. Oh, it's in the folder.
Here it is. You want me to do it?
Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the mayor and city council of the city of Gaithersburg conduct a closed executive session immediately following its session tonight, Monday, February 6, 2023, pursuant to the general provisions article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Section 3-305B8, to consult with staff consultants or other individuals about pending or potential litigation. The topics to be discussed are the agreements for 315 East Diamond Avenue and the Casey West development.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0, so we will have an executive session immediately after this meeting. Now we'll go to Tanisha and from the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor Ashman. I just have one announcement, just a reminder to the public. We have put out a press release and just want to encourage anyone who is interested. The 60-day public comment period is open for the Regional Fair Housing Plan. So the city is one of 7 local communities participating in developing a Regional Fair Housing Program. The 60-day comment period will be open until March 31st. And you can access and submit written comments through the city's website. And just a quick thing about Black History Month, I get a lot of unsolicited compliments about our logo in general. I think we have one of the coolest city logos, frankly. But I also get a lot about the Black History Month version of the logo. I think it is the best version of the logo. So I try to keep it up as long as possible, but we'll enjoy it for the next few weeks here.
Excellent. Maybe we can incorporate some of that design in the next iteration of our flag.
I set myself up for that, didn't I?
That's the next road
Everyone
we'll
enjoy
cross.
the Rihanna concert next week. This weekend, by the way.
This weekend,
This
Sunday.
weekend, yeah.
Yes.
At the football game.
Yeah.
At a football
There's
game.
some sort of football game and a Rihanna concert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Economic development, Tom Lonergan Seeger.
Thank you. I'll enjoy it. A local young biotech did make news this last week. As reported in the Washington Business Journal, Vector Biomed, Inc., which is located in 25,000 square feet facility at 910 Clopper Road, across from the bowling alley. They raised $15 million late last year, funds which are now moving the company from a business concept to contract development and manufacturing organization. Vector Biomed will design and manufacture lentiviral vectors for gene therapy companies. Translation: this Gaithersburg startup will speed the research and development process for many other life science companies. But there is more to the story, which tells of Gaithersburg's vibrant life sciences ecosystem. Vector Biomed CEO is local serial entrepreneur Boro Dropulik, who founded and later sold Lentigen to Miltenyi Biotech, a global corporation that subsequently established its North American headquarters at 1201 Clopper Road, next to the bowling alley. Boro also co-founded the Gaithersburg nonprofit Caring Cross, for which he is also executive director. Caring Cross is a group of healthcare professionals, scientists, business leaders, and community members that work to speed the development of and expand access to medications for infectious diseases and cancers. Vector Biomed currently employs about a dozen people and expects to hire an additional 20 to 30 additional this year alone. Our city's unique combination of talented labor, access to investment capital, and specialized real estate fosters the growth of biotech such as them. And here's to another success story.
Thank you, Tom.
Sure.
Love the good news. And next we have, are we doing a legislative session update?
No,
I have that on this, I don't know why that's on here. No worries, no worries. Okay, next we're gonna move to ordinances, resolutions, regulations, and invite Sean Stevens from our Public Works Department to come up and talk about a contract for a whole bunch of police cars, right?
That's the first one.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. The resolution before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract to purchase 17 2023 Ford hybrid utility vehicles. These vehicles will consist of one marked and two unmarked 2023 Ford Police Interceptor hybrid utility all-wheel drive vehicles and 14 2023 Ford hybrid utility vehicles for planning and code and neighborhood services. The Department of Public Works would like to utilize State of Maryland contract, which was awarded on February 11, 2022. This contract was competitively bid by the State of Maryland and satisfies all requirements for the city's procurement policy. Due to their age, condition, and reliability, these 16 vehicles that are being replaced were approved as part of the city's FY23 budget in the Asset Replacement Fund. One new addition to the fleet was approved for neighborhood services in the FY23 budget also. Apple Ford, the State of Maryland's primary contractor for these vehicles, provided us with a quote in the amount of $751,948 for these 17 vehicles. Once the new vehicles are received, the 16 vehicles being replaced will be sold at public auction. After we replace these vehicles, 28% of our police fleet will be hybrid, and 100% of our planning and code vehicles will be hybrid also at this point. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Sean. Any questions or comments? If not, would someone like to move the resolution?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you. And next.
More vehicles. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The resolution before you tonight is to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract to purchase 11 replacement vehicles. Due to their age, condition, and reliability, these 11 vehicles were scheduled for replacement in the FY23 budget. These vehicles would consist of 5 2023 F-350 regular cab pickup trucks with plows and salters, 2 2023 F-350 crew cab pickup trucks with plows and salters, 1 2023 F-350 utility body truck with plow and salter, and 1 one-ton F-350 dump truck with plow and tailgate spreader, which will be used by the Public Works Operations Division, and in addition, 2 2022 Ford Transit T350 fully electric cargo vans, which will be utilized by our Facilities Division. The Department of Public Works would like to utilize the Baltimore County Contract 0004504, which was awarded on November 1st, 2020. This contract was competitively bid by by Baltimore County, Maryland, and satisfies all requirements of the city's procurement policy. Apple Ford, Baltimore County's contractor, provided us with a quote in the amount of $871,134 for these 11 vehicles. Once these new vehicles are received, the 11 vehicles being replaced will be sold at public auction. Do you have any questions for me?
Thank you, Sean. Questions, comments?
I have a
Ryan,
question. Go ahead, Ryan.
Ryan, then Neil.
It's just sort of a half-joking question. Because these are brand-new vehicles, the salters on them are going to be even more precise, right?
They'll be.
That's a joke. That's a joke. Don't answer that. Just because Carl's in the audience.
They are controlled by computers, and we are very diligent on how we apply salt in the city. So.
We know you are. I wanted to ask, you said that this Baltimore County contract is a 2020 contract. Do we benefit from it being a contract that's a little bit older, or do they just scale up the price?
They've scaled the prices.
Okay.
As you can imagine, the prices of vehicles have skyrocketed in the past 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So.
That's why, I knew they had gone up a lot.
But on the bright side, we're getting very good returns on the vehicles we're selling via the public auction. So we just sold a vehicle recently that we got almost what we paid for 8 years ago.
Wow.
So
Okay, all right.
there's some pros and some cons to all of it. So we're doing pretty well on it, though.
Good, thanks.
Neil.
So I noted that you stated that the cargo vans that you're looking at are electric.
Fully
Are they
electric.
the first all-electric vehicles in the city's fleet?
No, presently we have 2 Public Works pool vehicles, which are fully electric. One of the police department's traffic enforcement vehicles is fully electric. I have another fully electric vehicle on order for the Benjamin Gaither Center right now, and then these 2 cargo vans will be our first 2 fully electric cargo vans.
Right, so the reason I was asking is I wanted to make sure that we've got the appropriate charging facility set up for them and all that, so I assume you're in good shape.
That's what we're doing, is when we start discussing replacing vehicles, we find out what kind of infrastructure we have in place at our facilities, and we're filling in electric as we can, and we're also working towards improving all of our infrastructure throughout all of our city facilities also.
All right, great.
Want to move the resolution?
I'll move the resolution.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Carries 3-0. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we're going to go into policy discussions, and Eric Perla. Welcome, Eric.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Ashman and council members. Tonight I'm going to be presenting a draft ordinance for policy discussion. Specifically, the ordinance will amend certain provisions of Chapter 17 in the City Code, which deals with personnel provisions regarding the adjudication of officer-related misconduct. The proposed changes arise from the Maryland General Assembly's enactment of the Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. This ordinance was introduced on December 15th, 2022. Public hearing was held on January 3rd, 2023. The record was closed on January 13th, 2023. As a brief background, Section 17-1 adds definition of police misconduct as defined under Maryland Code, and it also establishes a procedure for the review and handling of cases involving allegations of police misconduct. With that, I will submit to the council and the mayor for a vote, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think when this was introduced, it was really, this is housekeeping because we have to comply with state law. So, any questions or comments? If not, someone want to move the ordinance? Is that what we're doing here? Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night. Go Chiefs.
Alex.
Wow. Ascension in the ranks.
Are you looking to hire a different lawyer?
Oh, stop it. Laura McFood, welcome. We are going to talk about 1 Central Avenue.
Yes. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council. This is a consolidated policy discussion on zoning map amendment Z9358-2022 and schematic development plan SDP 9355-2022, including requests for environmental, road code, and height waivers. The joint public hearing for these was held on November 7th, 2022. These applications were submitted for 1 Central Avenue and surrounding properties, highlighted in red here on your map, at the corner of South Frederick Avenue and Central Avenue. As discussed during the public hearing, the rezoning application proposes to rezone these properties from RA to CD, which is in compliance with the city's master plan. And then the SDP application is proposing to develop the site with 72 2/2 units surrounding a central park space. The applicant is also applying for a few waivers and a tree removal variance. There's a height waiver request to allow buildings up to 4 stories. The environmental waiver request is to allow some mostly temporary disturbance within the stream valley buffer. And then the road code and parking waivers are intended to reduce the impervious surface and encroachment into the stream valley buffer. The tree removal variance and the parking waivers, those would be included as part of the SDP approval, and then the other waiver requests are separate resolutions. I just wanted to briefly point out some minor changes to the plans since the hearing. The applicant has added some additional parking spaces off Alley C, and then a sidewalk connecting up to the proposed playground. These changes were reflected in the applicant's presentation during the public hearing. They just weren't reflected in the plan set. So now the plans have been updated. Another change, this stick of units had to be shifted slightly a couple feet to accommodate utilities. So there's a slight increase in the encroachment of the corner of this alley. And then in response to comments that were received from the adjacent funeral home property, the applicant is proposing some screening with trees and fencing to block sight lines, and they provided an exhibit showing the line of sight from the playground looking to the backside of the funeral home property. In response to comments and questions that came up during the hearing, the applicant has provided a response statement, which was included as Exhibit 57 in the SDP record and Exhibit 22 in the rezoning record. This just briefly summarizes the comments. There are some questions about buffer impacts. Most of the impacts to the buffer are temporary or they follow existing encroachments. And the overall function of the buffer will be improved with the addition of stormwater management facilities and dedication of an over 2-acre forest conservation easement. There's a question about proposed tree removals. Most of the trees slated for removal are in average or poor condition. And then also with the dedication of the forest con easement, the applicant's proposing over 200 new tree plantings. The question about a potential Bean Hill Court connection, that is this street here. As the applicant responded, they do not own these properties in order to construct that connection, but staff notes that the site would be designed in a way that could facilitate a connection if it were to be constructed in the future. A question came up about a school fee. Gaithersburg High School, which does serve the development, is subject to a Tier 1 fee currently, but that is something that will be finalized during final site plan review. A question about potential for stream restoration. Staff consulted Public Works about this, and they said that a restoration project for the site is not recommended at this time. The Muddy Branch watershed study stated that this site was in good condition. A member of the community suggested a community garden space within the park area. That's something the applicant has stated they're happy to look into, and staff can work with them on incorporating that within the plans at the next stage at final site plan. There's also a question about parking. The applicant, as they mentioned in the response statement, they're exceeding the minimum parking requirements by 42 spaces. So each lot has 2 parking spaces on the lot, and then there are additional 42 on-street spaces for an average of 2.6 spaces per unit. And then lastly, there are some questions and comments about site access and circulation. This project does have an approved traffic study that shows all intersections operating at acceptable levels. And then the applicant is proposing this concrete channelization to prevent illegal left turns that are currently prohibited. But this will help prevent queuing along Central Avenue and allow access efficiently in and out of the site. Council's record closed on 5 p.m. Friday, January 13th, 2023. The Planning Commission, upon their review of the record and staff's analysis, gave a recommendation of approval for both the rezoning and the SDP application, as well as the waiver request at their January 4th, 2023 meeting. And then staff is proposing 5 conditions on the approval of the SDP. The first 2 conditions just have to do with some minor cleanup items that the applicant will need to address prior to signature. The third condition, there's a slope easement that will need to be extinguished. The county has already indicated that they will be doing that. The fourth one has to do with replacing the culvert where the new road is crossing over the stream. There's an existing driveway there and culvert, but that has to be replaced, which will require Maryland Department of the Environment approval. So staff is asking for a letter from MDE indicating that that can be authorized prior to final site plan approval. And then the last condition has to do with architecture. The CD zone does not require design guidelines, so this is one way that staff thought it would be good to establish parameters on the architecture. So we're requiring that the elevations at final site plan must reflect elevation and key lot plan notes that were established on the SDP, and those notes have to do with higher treatment for higher visibility lots on the property. So a draft ordinance for the rezoning and draft resolutions for the environmental road code and height waivers, as well as the SDP, have been included and are ready for final action, should the council so choose. And I just want to note, there is one minor drafting error on the environmental waiver request, or excuse me, environmental waiver resolution. One of the findings was repeated, so that has been corrected, and you'll receive a revised version for signature. And I just want to note that this will require 5 separate motions. So we'd like to start with the rezoning ordinance, followed by the waiver request, and then the last would be the SDP. And that's all I have. The applicant's team, as well as staff, is here to answer any questions.
Got it. Thank you, Laura. Appreciate it. Questions or comments, or would someone like to make the first of what will be 5 motions?
I'll move the ordinance for rezoning Z9358-2022.
Second. Second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. Let's go to the next one.
The next one, the environmental.
Yep.
I move the environmental standards for development regulation, ENV-93620-2022.
9360-2022.
Isn't that what I said?
Close, you were close.
Okay.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second. That's with the correction indicated, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. Next one, road code waiver. What is the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the road code waiver. I don't know the number.
RC-9359-2022.
He's correct. That is the right number.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, carries 3-0. Almost there, guys. Next is the height waiver. What is the pleasure of the council?
I'll move approval of the resolution of the height waiver. This is for SDP 9355-2022.
Yep.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Lisa?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. And last is the SDP, and I guess this would include the 5 conditions from staff.
Go ahead, Lisa.
Mayor, I move approval of SDP 9355-2022 with the 5 motions.
Conditions.
The
5
conditions.
conditions.
Got it.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Okay, that carries 3-0. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Thank you to the applicant, the applicants over here.
Thank you for the error checker to my right.
Next, Dennis and Greg. Let's do some staff guidance here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. As you're aware, the Mayor and City Council have been asked to sponsor a text amendment to Chapter 24, which is our zoning code. Outside of the process that we currently established to revise the comprehensive amendment to the zoning code that we're currently getting ready to kick off here this month, the amendment would lift the prohibition of tattoo parlors in various zoning districts. We have put together a memo. I will note that there's an error in the back recommendation. There are only 4 concerns, not a 5th concern. I misplaced the and or forgot to remove the and in the right location. We have put together a memo which kind of outlines some of the operating facts. It is a complex issue. There are a number of state regulations, our regulations, different definitions for different items that are typically associated with tattoo establishments. So one of the issues that we have the biggest concern with is the complexity, right? I think we all know that tattoo parlors have changed over the years since our zoning code was adopted, and that's not the issue in terms of the overall use. But given COMAR regulations related to what salons can do, what barbershops can do, and our own provisions, which basically would prohibit kind of a secondary use of a tattoo establishment within a barbershop based upon the current code provisions, really adds to the layering of complexity. I think the other issue, as we're all aware, that tattoo parlors tend to provide more services than just tattoos in today's society. They do additional, sometimes they do branding, sometimes they do body modifications, which include piercing and other modifications to the body. Given the issues that we're currently having, even getting compliance with salons, kind of looking at tattoos as a separate issue, we think that additional layering of those additional services that would be typically provided by a tattoo establishment, we are recommending that you wait and we still address this as part of the overall comprehensive zoning amendment changes because of all that layering. We have outlined a little bit more in detail some of the concerns we have and are happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the memo or the topic in general.
Thank you very much, Dennis. Greg, thanks for research that your team, I'm sure, helped with. Who wants to ask questions or make comments here first? Neil, it looks like you're ready to go.
So first of all, I think as the instigator of this process suggested, perhaps looking at this as separating the issue of hair salons and barbershops from specific tattoo establishments is probably the right way to go because of the fact that the state regulates the hair establishments and is really outside of our purview. Now, just a quick question. I think it's become my understanding that there are actually a large number of establishments that are doing various levels of tattoo, whether it's eyebrows or more traditional tattoo work in the city that are technically not permitted but have been ongoing and haven't really resulted in any complaints that I'm aware of. Is that truly the case?
Staff did do kind of a comprehensive review of what establishments, based upon an internet search and other items, to look at what services were being provided. There are roughly 13 establishments that we investigated. The other complication that I didn't really get into, but is a little bit of an issue, is that you can do permanent makeup tattooing under the state ordinance and under our provisions if you have a licensed medical esthetician, right? So some of those are providing services under that, some are not. Some of those issues have been really kind of use creep in our view. We don't have active UNOs or use and occupancies for those particular services. And then there were previously at least one establishment that was providing tattoos that we did ask to leave the premises based upon the current, and that was previously a number of months ago. So there are about 13 that provide some version of that, some which provide it off-site, so that's another complication. We have a couple of salons that actually say, you can come and look at what's going to happen and we can guide you on that, but the service is actually provided in another location outside of Gaithersburg. So it's not an easy answer for you, Councilmember Harris. We're working through all of those, but I wouldn't say that there's a lot.
And are these uses something that have been considered by the public to be a nuisance at this point? Because I know that these regulations were put in place at a time when, the atmosphere of a tattoo establishment was very different than I think what we're expecting to see today.
Yeah, I don't think anybody, even sitting at this table on the staff side, believe they're nuisances. It's a matter of whether they comply with the existing zoning regulations and the state statutes. And again, as I noted, on the 13, a lot of those are really in violation of COMAR, not necessarily our provision or so that gets complicated. We don't view them as nuisances. We just believe that given the complexity of the issue, along with other services that might be provided, we should wait and look at a comprehensive overview of the zoning code.
And by wait, what are we talking about time-wise?
The goal is for us to adopt or get close to the publication of the ordinance in 2024, the spring of 2024.
Okay, that's it for now.
Okay. Ryan?
I have a couple of questions,
Sure.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you. And Neil beat me to the question about the timeline. So, spring of 2024, more or less a year from now, versus if there were to be, a sort of a standalone ZTA process on this issue. We're talking, what's the city's usual process? 4 or 6 months, something like that, right? Okay. Well, first let me just say I'm sympathetic to our friends, the O'Connors here, and appreciate them, reaching out to us and the opportunity to sit down with them. I met with Mrs. O'Connor a while back and sort of talked out their vision. And we always want to be supportive in general of folks who want to invest in creating businesses in the city. It's just a matter of balancing that against all these complicated regulatory requirements. And so I just kind of wanted to put that out up front. I have a couple of sort of technical questions, and I don't know if this is more a question for our legal folks or for you guys who sort of dug into some of the requirements. One of the things that I think Mr. O'Connor mentioned earlier tonight was that under the state rules of COMAR, that a barber shop could have a secondary use if there was some sort of partition. But again, it sounded to me from Dennis that the issue on that particular question is more of an issue with our own city regulation at this point. Is that right?
Yes, based upon legal's review of the current ordinance, we would believe that would still be prohibited.
Okay, and then I thought it was an interesting point about THC dispensaries, but my understanding from a number of years ago when we had that discussion was that we concluded that medical cannabis sort of fit under our pharmacy regulation, and so it was already sort of a permitted use as a pharmacy.
If I remember correctly, state law precluded us from looking at it any differently.
Differently than a pharmacy.
Yeah.
Right, and so anywhere where we had zoned use for a pharmacy, we had to allow that.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
so that is a little different than the situation here. I just sort of.
But if I can interrupt,
Yeah.
I think the point that Mr. O'Connor brings up is a valid one. That at the time that our regulations or our laws were written, there was a whole different view of tattoo, and THC was not contemplated back at that point. Whenever, who knows, in the '60s or whenever this thing was written.
Right.
Go ahead, Ryan.
And I will echo what Dennis said earlier. I don't really believe there's any concern with stigma for tattoo parlors the way that there might have been many decades ago. I don't really think that's the issue here at all. And I think that they can be successful, thriving businesses. It's just a matter of, figuring out our regulatory requirements and how they all work, and not rushing into anything that's going to end up creating negative unintended consequences. One of the things that I've sort of become aware of recently is that there are some businesses that are sort of portable tattoo businesses where someone might bring their equipment to a third-party site and actually do the tattoo work there. I don't know if we have contemplated how that might work under some future change in our regulations, but do you know what I'm talking about? Like, people could have like a social event or a party at some third-party venue and bring in someone who's a tattoo artist to do tattoos at that location. I don't know if that's allowed or not, in other places, but I've seen it done. And so it sort of raises the question whether or not we have to think through that as well, whether that is not really a zoning issue, if it's something else, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have put any thought into that. Looking at your faces, I'm guessing the answer is no.
We've looked at it, but the issue becomes, what, is it an event
Right.
where you're actually paying for the service, or is it someone else? It's just like a party favor? Those are completely different things, right? So we would have to analyze it a
I mean, it's
little
not
bit
like
more.
a party favor, like, you look at like my kids like fake tattoos. No, I've seen it done with like a real tattoo artist with
No, I
professional
meant
equipment.
you could still have a real tattoo artist, right? But
have it be free versus have it be.
it gets complicated from that perspective. I
Right.
mean, I think all those things show how antiquated some provisions of our zoning code are, that we haven't been really keeping it up to date in terms of what's socially acceptable now, right? So I think we also have to look at state law related to that, because there are, the odd part is there's really not a license to tattoo at the state level, which seems a little bit odd, given the fact that, cosmetologists get regulated quite a bit in terms of what they can and cannot do. So that's one of the reasons we need a little bit more time to see how other communities have addressed this, and we think that's, one of the reasons we're asking for it to be part of that comprehensive zoning review, right? Because we are going to look at other cities' zoning ordinances, how they address those, along with other issues. It's not just tattooing and services like that, but body piercing and among other things.
Good, thanks.
Lisa, any questions?
Yes, thank you. To go with where Councilmember Spiegel was going, and thank you to the O'Connors for bringing this to light. The packet was interesting to read. I learned a lot from what I thought about tattoos and what I now know about the industry from going through the packet. So thank you to Dennis and Greg for this information, because it's been extremely helpful. But does it become even more than a zoning issue? So when we talk about in residential areas, people are hosting tattoo parties, right? They bring in a tattoo professional and folks are getting tattooed. Is that outlawed? If that home exists in the city of Gaithersburg, have they done something wrong?
Because they're not operating as a home occupation, I don't believe, and I'll look to Lynn and Greg to redefine that, I don't believe we would restrict that, right? That's an individual hosting and
It's not a
doing.
commercial transaction, right?
It's not happening.
Well,
that way.
people might be paying
Right,
for
they
it.
are
Like
paying
in a
for it.
Tupperware party, people are going and hanging out, but they're
Right.
still paying for the piece of
Right.
Tupperware.
It doesn't change the use, right? At the end of the day, the use under the zoning code would still be a residential home, right? It's no different than you have someone clean your house. We don't change that also into a commercial use for house cleaning, right? It's still a residential use end of the day. So the zoning ordinance would not cover someone coming to your home and getting a tattoo. Now, again, there may be state regulations and other things that do govern that, but I don't know that answer off the top of my head.
I just want to clarify, Greg, someone coming to your home for an event to get a tattoo, because a home-based tattoo business would be a problem.
If they are operating, if it's your home and you are the tattooist and you are running essentially a business out of your home, that would be considered a home-based business, and
Right.
that is different than. Again, I understood the question as being, I'm inviting a tattoo artist to my home to provide tattoos to my friends for a party. But again, yeah, a home-based business is regulated to the zoning ordinance, and it is prohibited. We would not typically allow a tattoo artist to operate out of their home.
And there are fine lines. I mean, Pampered Chef, Tupperware, those all get to be really fine lines, right? About how often you do it. So it's not a simple, straightforward answer, other than, to be honest, we actually did have someone at one point in time who was operating a tattoo parlor out of their home, and we said, no, you cannot do that. Because it's not a home occupation that's allowed.
And also, do you know the history of why barbers and not salons, beachside? It sounds a bit Neanderthal.
No,
inequitable.
it's actually, it has a long history, right? Barbers have been regulated even in the 1700s in England and the US, right? Because they did other medical services. So they've always been treated differently under state law and other provisions. And the reason they've retained that is because they probably have a pretty good lobbyist, right? But I believe that's the history of why they're always called out separately in most state statutes, is because they have a long history of providing other services that they don't provide today, right? You're not going to find those being provided by a barber shop today, but historically they would have provided some of those odd services that we find interesting from a historical perspective, right?
It definitely lends to, with that answer, it lends to how aged these laws are.
And again, I think it adds to the confusion in terms of, compliance issues that we currently have are really more on the COMAR provision, not on our provisions. And in fact, that's where we're having the most problem. So I do think it's time for the state also to try and look at their provisions that they have. And that's outside of what we're talking about tonight, but it is something that I would encourage other people who want to provide those services to work with the state to try and update those provisions.
Thank you.
All right, well, I don't have, as I say all the time, and if Rob Wu was here, he would say it for me, I don't have a vote here, but I feel like with all due respect to the O'Connors, I feel like the staff recommendation and beyond that, the recommendation from our Economic Development Committee makes sense. This has become, as we've looked into this matter, we've seen it to be a much more muddled situation than maybe we expected when the conversation started. And there's a lot of complexity here. And given the timing of our comprehensive zoning rewrite, I think it makes sense to consider everything on a comprehensive level rather than prejudging it with a specific ZTA. So that's where I would be here. Where's the council? Want to start with Neil?
Sure. Well, of course, I participated or mostly listened to the conversation at the Economic Development Committee meeting, and I think the position that staff took that the committee agreed with was, on the one hand, we could focus on a ZTA that's going to take 4 to 6 months and probably detract from resources from the comprehensive zoning rewrite that is so overdue and is scheduled for a release in the first half of next year. So I think the sentiment in the room was to address everything comprehensively. That said, I'm very sympathetic to the O'Connors who would like to get moving, I'm sure, much sooner than a year and change from now. If we hadn't undertaken this zoning rewrite, which is a very major undertaking, this would be a much easier call. So I think I'll have to reluctantly go along with what the Economic Development Committee and staff are recommending and, bundle it all together.
Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm sympathetic, but I think that just for all the same reasons, it makes the most sense in terms of resources and timeline and resolving this more with finality, as part of the bigger picture of our zone. And again, I agree with Neil. If this was something that would take, years longer or that didn't, happen to, line up with what we're doing with the comprehensive zoning rewrite, then that would be a different story. But it does line up. So my position is I agree with Neil.
Lisa?
Yes, I appreciate the O'Connors and the work that they've done to bring this issue to light. It seems like maybe it's even flipped a little, like even if we weren't doing the zoning rewrite, we would probably be talking about it because of this, because of the complexity of this and the breadth of this. It's bigger than a breadbasket, and I thought it was a breadbasket. I'm concerned that if we do the ZTA, we are gonna place a narrow text amendment in that gets us in trouble later because of the complexity of this. So as much as I appreciate what you want to do and trying to do, I would be in favor of continuing with the zoning ordinance.
Thanks. And I did communicate with Jim and Rob, knowing they weren't going to be here tonight, and asked what their position was on this. And they are on the other side. Both, just for the record, Jim and Rob would have been in favor of pursuing the ZTA and going sort of against the recommendations from staff in the Economic Development Committee. I just want to put that out there to be fair to them, since they're not here.
I think it was a tough call, honestly.
It was a tough call.
I think that our tattoo regulations are very antiquated and don't
Agree.
reflect the reality of today.
Agree.
If there was a fast and easy way to fix it, I would be all for that.
Fair enough. All right, do you feel guided?
Yes.
Okay. Next is from the city attorney.
Nothing further this evening.
Anything from any other staff? Okay. Well, I will remind everyone we do not have a work session next week. That would be February 13th. The next regular meeting of the Mayor and Council will be on February 21st, which is a Tuesday. And until next time, let's do great things, Gaithersburg. We are adjourned.